Have you ever thought about the impact of loneliness on your health? It's a question that might take you by surprise. After all, loneliness is often seen as a purely emotional condition, a heartache that we sometimes brush under the carpet. But what if I told you it's more than that? That loneliness is an unseen epidemic that casts a long shadow over our society, affecting millions. Let's take a moment to understand this. Loneliness isn't just about being alone. It's about feeling alone. It's about feeling disconnected, isolated, even when you're in a crowd. It's a deep-seated sense of not belonging, of being on the outside looking in. And this feeling, as it turns out, can have profound implications for our health. You see, loneliness isn't merely an emotional state. It's a biological trigger, a switch that, when flipped, can set off a cascade of stress responses in our bodies. It's like a silent alarm that keeps ringing, setting our bodies on a constant state of alert. And this ever-present stress, day in and day out, can take a heavy toll on our health. Studies have shown that chronic loneliness can lead to an array of health issues. It can increase our risk of heart disease and stroke, weaken our immune system, and even shorten our lifespan. It's not an exaggeration to say that loneliness can, quite literally, kill you. But despite these alarming facts, loneliness remains a largely overlooked issue. It's an epidemic that's often hidden in plain sight, silently affecting people of all ages, from all walks of life. It's a health risk that we seldom talk about, yet it's right there, lurking in the shadows, affecting our lives in ways we may not even realize. We need to bring this issue into the light. We need to understand the mechanisms of how loneliness produces stress and how this may translate into a premature death. But more importantly, we need to learn ways to combat loneliness, to foster connections, and to build high-quality relationships. Loneliness isn't just about feeling alone. It's a silent killer, a health risk that we seldom talk about. Loneliness does more than just make us feel blue. It can trigger a cascade of physiological responses. When we feel lonely, our bodies perceive it as a threat. This perception ignites what is known as the body's stress response. You know that feeling when you're about to give a big presentation, or maybe when you're in the middle of an intense game. That's the stress response in action. It's a survival mechanism designed to help us react quickly in threatening situations. But here's the kicker. Our bodies don't distinguish between physical threats and emotional ones, like loneliness. So when we're feeling isolated, our bodies respond as if we're facing a real, immediate danger. This triggers a release of the hormone cortisol, also known as the stress hormone. Now, cortisol isn't all bad. In the face of danger, it helps us by increasing our heart rate, blood pressure, and energy supplies. It sharpens our senses and prepares us for quick action. But when loneliness causes our bodies to be constantly on high alert, we end up with sustained high levels of cortisol. This is where things get tricky. Prolonged exposure to cortisol can lead to a host of health problems. It can cause damage to our immune system, making us more susceptible to infections. It can lead to weight gain, high blood pressure, and disruption of sleep patterns. Over time, these conditions can contribute to more serious problems like heart disease and diabetes. And it doesn't stop there. Chronic loneliness, with its persistent high cortisol levels, can even accelerate the aging process, leading to premature death. Studies have found that the health risks associated with loneliness are comparable to those of smoking 15 cigarettes a day or being an alcoholic. So loneliness isn't just a state of mind. It's a stressor that can wreak havoc on our bodies. But don't despair. While it's true that loneliness can have serious health implications, it's not a life sentence. In our next segment, we'll explore the psychology of loneliness and discuss strategies to break the cycle. Stay tuned. In our minds, loneliness can become a vicious cycle, feeding on itself and worsening over time. This cycle begins when feelings of isolation trigger anxiety and depression. These emotions, in turn, make the loneliness feel more intense, more overwhelming, creating a loop that is hard to break free from. Loneliness isn't just about physically being alone. It's about feeling disconnected from others, feeling as though you're on the outside looking in. It's a sense of not belonging, of not being understood. This type of emotional isolation can be just as damaging, if not more so, than physical isolation. The more isolated we feel, the more likely we are to perceive the world around us as threatening. This perception can cause us to retreat further into our loneliness, creating a self-fulfilling prophecy. We believe we are alone, so we isolate ourselves, which only serves to reinforce our belief that we are alone. Depression and anxiety often follow close behind. These mental health conditions feed off feelings of loneliness, exacerbating them, and making it harder for us to reach out to others for support. The longer this cycle continues, the more ingrained it becomes and the more difficult it is to break. But it's important to remember that this cycle isn't a life sentence. It can be broken. It's not easy, but it is possible. It starts with understanding that loneliness is a state of mind, not a reflection of reality. It's about recognizing the value we have as individuals and the contributions we can make to the world around us. We also need to understand the difference between being alone and being lonely. It's possible to be alone without feeling lonely, just as it's possible to feel lonely in a crowd of people. The key is to find meaningful connections, ones that fulfill us and make us feel seen and understood. Breaking the cycle of loneliness requires more than just company. It requires connection. Connections that are deep and genuine, that make us feel valued and loved. So let's take a step forward. Reach out and break the cycle. After all, we are all in this together. So how can you break the cycle of loneliness and protect your health? It may seem daunting, but let's break it down into manageable steps. First, let's talk about engagement. Loneliness isn't cured by simply being around others, but by fostering genuine connections. How do you do this? One way is by engaging in activities that you are passionate about. Join a book club, enroll in a pottery class, volunteer at a local shelter, or take up a sport. These activities provide a common ground to connect with others, and the shared passion makes these interactions meaningful. Next, it's crucial to remember that it's okay to seek professional help. Therapists and counselors can provide valuable insights and coping strategies. They can help you understand your feelings of loneliness and guide you on how to navigate through them. It's not a sign of weakness to ask for help. It's a sign of strength to recognize when you need it. Lastly, maintaining healthy lifestyle habits is key. Eating a balanced diet, exercising regularly, and getting enough sleep can significantly improve your mental health. These habits can boost your mood and provide you with the energy to engage in social activities. But remember, it's not about rushing into these changes all at once. Take a step back, breathe, and tackle them one at a time. Small, consistent steps can lead to significant changes. And remember, it's okay to have bad days. They don't define your journey, they're just part of it. And here's something to keep in mind. You are not alone in your fight against loneliness. There are countless others out there who are going through the same journey. And just like you, they are looking for someone to connect with. So don't be afraid to reach out, to share your story, to listen to theirs. Because in this shared experience, you might just find the connection you've been looking for. Remember, the key to breaking the cycle of loneliness is connection, not just company. Why does connection matter so much in combating loneliness? This is a question that's been asked and answered by countless studies and mental health professionals worldwide. You see, we humans are social creatures by nature. Our survival and evolution have been intertwined with our ability to connect with others, and it's this inherent need for social interaction that makes connection a vital weapon in the fight against loneliness. But let's be clear here. We're not just talking about any old connection. We're talking about authentic, meaningful connections, the kind where you can share your thoughts and feelings without judgment, the kind where you feel seen, heard, and valued, the kind where you can be your true, authentic self. These connections are the antidotes to loneliness. They provide a sense of belonging, a feeling of being part of something bigger than ourselves. They can help us navigate through life's ups and downs, providing a safety net when we stumble and a cheering squad when we triumph. And let's not forget the science. Studies show that having strong social connections can help reduce stress levels. This is because our relationships can provide emotional support during trying times, helping to buffer the effects of stress. Moreover, these connections can improve our mental health. They can boost our mood, enhance our self-esteem, and provide a sense of purpose. In fact, research shows that people with strong social ties tend to have lower rates of depression and anxiety, and the benefits don't stop there. Believe it or not, these connections can even lead to a longer, healthier life. Yes, you heard right. Studies have found that people with strong social ties have a lower risk of premature death compared to those who are lonely. So you see, the power of connection in combating loneliness cannot be overstated. It's a lifeline, a beacon of hope, a shield against the darkness of isolation. In the end, it's not about how many people you know. It's about the quality of the connections you have. Because loneliness can kill, but connection can save.